Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to The Great Retention with Camber Parker, sponsored by the YoProKnow. I'm Camber, your young professional expert and founder of the YoProKnow, where we bring you the answers you need to know about how to hire and retain the best talent, starting with the young professionals you work with. There's a lot of young professional fish in the sea, as I like to say, but how do you catch them? And what do you do once you reel them in? That's where we come in. Today, I'm so excited to have Lindsay Niedringhaus, founder, and Kate Dabbs, president of TealHaus Strategies, joining us here in Greenville, South Carolina. I met these two fellow Furman grads last year, which feels really weird, feels like it's been longer, and have been very fortunate to learn from their entrepreneurial experiences. We have even had the opportunity to partner together with our services, and I've continued to be just so impressed and inspired by their leadership, not to mention the lessons that they have shared with me from their own work. Thank you guys for that. I've invited them on the show today to share their thoughts on a hybrid and remote workforce as an agency that has doubled in size each year since it has been in existence. They have a unique lens to share with us today about attracting and retaining talent and how marketing can play a role in that. Lindsay and Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited y'all are here and you braved the horrible weather here in Greenville today. So thank you. We have you've had a big week, right? We had a big rebrand. So I definitely want to touch on that in a little bit. But to get started, we're going to do what I like to call a lightning round. So in a couple sentences or less, try to answer these questions. So first, tell us something that is not on your resume.
I sleep with a duck that my husband gave me when we started dating, and that was 17 years ago.
What? Well, congrats. I feel like we need more to expand on that, but this is a lightning round.
A stuffed duck, not a real duck.
Right, a stuffed duck, to clarify. Kate, how do you follow that?
I really don't know. I mean, I guess my answer would be that I, in another life, would have loved to have been the gluten-free pioneer woman or barefoot Contessa. I think that would have been really fun, and I love recipes and I love cooking.
Love that. And you are gluten-free.
I am. Not
Very
by
cool.
choice, I might add.
Right. Well, I wish you had started that too. That would have been really cool. What is your favorite marketing tool? I have to ask.
My notepad, nothing fancy at all, but I carry a bound journal around with me for all of my meetings. And so that way all the pages stay in there so that I can flip back and see, okay, what happened in that meeting? What was I supposed to do here? Versus like a tear off sheet thing where you lose everything. So that's my really fancy marketing tool.
And didn't your dog chew on it?
He did, and I still use it.
Love that.
And for me, mine, compared to Lindsay, is so boring and organized, but we like to consider ourselves kind of type A professionals. So I love our project management tool, ClickUp, because it helps us keep track of all of the things we have going on and communicate with each other, which as a hybrid work environment, it's really important. And we get to cross things off our list all the time, which is really fun.
Yeah, there are so many tools out there, I feel like, where it's hard to put them all in one. And I do feel like ClickUp does a really good job of that. So shout out to ClickUp. Can you tell us a lesson that you learned as a young professional?
So my lesson that I learned was always say yes, which I know is contrary to people saying, have boundaries, say no, understand who you are. Every time I said yes to someone, some other opportunity opened up. So even if it was just a random person I ran into that said, I love your advice, can we have coffee? Yes. And then who knows what happens with that conversation.
Yeah, I love that.
And for me, it was always ask for more money when you're given a job offer. Hirers tend to have money that is available on the table. They have a little wiggle room. And I had one job where my boss told me, Kate, you actually left money on the table when you accepted so excitedly, which made me hurt because it takes so long to get increases. But at the beginning is when you really have that chance. So I would say always do a little counter offer, even if it's small.
Two really good pieces of advice. So thanks for sharing. All right, now we're going to get into the meat of what y'all are here for today. Before we do that, though, give us a little bit more background on what TealHaus Strategies does. Who is TealHaus? And tell us a little bit more before we dive in.
Sure. So I started the company almost 3 years ago. I had worked in agencies for a lot of my life and then worked for companies that hired agencies. And so I'd been on both sides of it. And I decided I wanted to start a company that was more efficient and could listen better to the clients and what they needed, because I never felt like I got that when I hired agencies myself. So That was almost 3 years ago, and we have evolved since then. And Kate and I both have a strong writing background. We worked together at Furman for years, and we've realized our strength is really in the storytelling aspect. And so we have potential clients who come to us and say, we're family oriented, we give the best customer service, we sell X, Y, and Z. And we're like, okay, that's great, but that's not going to resonate. What's the story behind that? What's that emotional pull that's going to connect those potential clients with you? Because as much as we all like to think that we make decisions based on facts, we don't. We make all of our decisions based on emotions. That's been proven time and time again. And so what we do as an agency is tell those stories that are going to appeal to that emotion in order to get the potential audience to do what the client needs.
Great. Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
And I would just add, I like to say that we started a little bit like a tumbleweed because
That is true.
Lindsay went out into the world and said, I'm here. And people said, yes, I want to work with you. So it's been fun now as we're kind of growing into our toddlerhood, as I like to call it, getting the infrastructure and who do we really want to be when we grow up? And how do we continue to use our strengths the most and help more people? And in 10 years, what do we want to look like? And what does that even not have to do with marketing? Other pieces of our passions that we could be working on. So we're really excited because we're really evolving into that next phase. And that is not tumbleweed-like and more organized.
Right. Well, I think you have to start somewhere. And it's pretty amazing. I've worked with you all before. You do a really great job. You're very attention to detail oriented.
Thank you.
But what I think is really important is when I first kind of got to know y'all, I realized this is a lot of word of mouth. Like people are referring their friends, their peers, other companies to you. And that's really hard to do in such a short period of time. So kudos to you all. I think that's worth mentioning.
Thank you.
Walk us through your current team and work structure. So how many team members do you have? Talk about hybrid, who's remote, what does that hybrid look like? And then how does your team operate during the week? So there's a lot of questions I just threw at you, but just tell us the makeup, the layout.
Sure. Well, I can start, but I'm going to let Kate fill in because she really manages the day-to-day of our team now, and I can give you a little bit of information about how that evolved. So we have 8 team members now. When we started, it was literally me, and as Kate said, I said, hi, I'm freelancing, hire me. I can do these things. And as I already said, I said yes to everything. So as we continue to grow and as I learned what our clients needed, I just hired accordingly. So as clients started needing graphic design, I hired Jesse Clark on our team, who is our chief creative officer. As I realized clients needed more writing, I called Kate and said, please quit your job and come join me. And so it's evolved based on the needs of our clients. We are fully remote, so not even hybrid. We have no office. When we get together, we get together at my office, at my house, or we go to other clients and meet there. It's interesting, though, even though we are fully remote, I can't think of a week that I haven't seen one of our team members in person because as much as we all work from home, we're getting together to meet with our clients constantly. We get together for coffee or for drinks or for lunch just to make sure we have that kind of personal interaction with each other. So as we discussed, things happened kind of organically, and I kind of recruited people that I'd worked with in past lives. And that's, I think, how we grew so quickly because a lot of the people that I worked with or Kate worked with, we already understood how they worked. We already knew they would function well in this kind of remote environment. And so as they joined us, we just jumped right in. There really wasn't a get to know you, how do you work, how do I work? It was like, all right, and here's what we're doing, and we just went with it.
No official onboarding.
No. But as a business owner, I'm constantly learning my strengths and my weaknesses. And one thing I learned is I hate managing people. I am not good at it. I want to be friends with everybody. And it was wearing me down. And I kind of hit this point at the beginning of this year where I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't manage our team. And then we also have this partner agency that we work with, and I was managing everyone there. And so I took Kate to lunch one day, and I was like, tell me, how you can help, because I know you can, and I would love to hand this to you. Do you want to take it from there?
Sure. So I actually love managing people, and so that's kind of a nice yin and yang kind of thing. One thing I really love is helping people recognize their potential and then growing to it. And I really believe in ongoing feedback. I think if you're only giving people feedback once a year at their performance evaluation, that is a disaster. And so immediately I set up one-on-ones with everyone monthly. Those are always in person, and they're very effective because not only does it help us catch up on what's going on personally, because we bring ourselves to work with us everywhere we go, our whole person. So they are inextricably linked. But it also just gives me the chance to have, if there's something we need to work on that is not an easy conversation, because no one likes to hear they could improve. I mean, it's nice to improve, but you might struggle with hearing that feedback. And so that's very important to me. And I call those my 3D meetings because we see each other in 2D all the time on our virtual calls that we do. But we also, I think it's really important that we utilize all of our communication tools. So I talked about ClickUp. We have a group text. I always say, if I get a long text from you, I'm going to call you, because we need to be having that conversation on the phone so we can hear each other. And so just trying to take a small team that's remote and make it feel more professional and have some of those guardrails that you might normally see in a brick and mortar company. And I will say Lindsay has a beautiful office that one of our clients actually designed. And so we do have a great space where we can gather when we want to. And
But I think, the wonderful thing that Kate brought to the company was a structure that I had put in place. And I think part of growing as a business is learning your weaknesses and your strengths. And because I don't like to manage people, and I don't like getting pulled down into the nitty gritty details, when someone would say, well, can you tell me how to do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, just go do it. I don't want to do that. Well, then bring in Kate, and Kate will help them figure out how to do it, how to make that happen. Whereas I just didn't have the patience or time for that. And so I think she has brought us to the next level of being more professional and structured.
I love all of what you're doing. I think it's really important, especially this year, where all we keep hearing is these big companies that are just forcing people to return to work. Including Zoom. Yeah, that just came out recently. I've seen a lot of funny memes about that. And it's like there's really this just either or situation. And I love that you are remote, but you still make that effort to communicate in a lot of different ways that work best for people. But I love what you said, Lindsay, that you actually feel like there's not a week that goes by where you don't see somebody in person. And that is where I think remote work is not expanded on. I think people just hear remote work and it's like, well, there's no connection. There's still connection at TealHaus, which is, I think, why it works, right? Why your system works.
And I've offered to get a co-work space for everyone, and I've asked the team over and over, do we need that? And everyone's like, we're good. We like working from home. Most of us have kids. We like the freedom for that. And so as long as it continues to work, I don't feel the need to have a common space that we all have to go to at some point.
Right. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for sharing. For most of the listeners of this show, they are business owners or leaders looking for proactive ways to increase retention and find the best talent. What have you learned from experience about attracting talent? And I'm sure there will be some segues from what we just talked about, but what are the best tools that you have used? And are there any that you recommend staying away from?
As far as looking for talent, as I said, a lot of the people that we've hired on our team, we've actually worked with in other places. To me, what's most important is not necessarily skills, but work ethic. And seeing that fire in someone and knowing that they want to improve and want to be there and just have that kind of itch to learn more is way more important than you've had years in marketing or whatever it is. Right. And I don't have a secret sauce to figuring that out, other than when I sit down and talk to someone for an interview, a lot of times I'm asking them things that have nothing to do with the job. Right. What do you do on the weekends? Tell me about your family, and just kind of understanding their personality. And that to me helps me to understand, okay, if I take this personality and add it to our team, how will they contribute?
Yeah, and I would say it is particularly important for us, as our remote environment necessitates, that we need to have people who can handle that it's not for everybody. It can be lonely. It can be isolating. And if you don't know how to apply yourself and not be distracted by the piles of laundry in your house or whatever it may be, you're not going to succeed. And so when we're interviewing, we've really learned how to ask some more penetrating questions and not make it sound like this very sexy thing, which, yes, it has its benefits, but it has a lot of, if you don't have the work ethic, if you don't have the drive, if you don't want to, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get something done in your best writing time, and then maybe take a nap later, whatever it may be, but then you aren't going to succeed and thrive. And when it comes to recruiting, I think I was thinking about this question in terms of my past experiences. And, I think for us, a tool like Indeed is not going to work for us because we don't have the internal really staff to weed through, because you're going to get a lot when you say, hey, we're a remote company and we do marketing. We would probably get 1,000 applicants all over the place, and we just don't have the manpower to even weed through those. So for me, it comes down to relationships. And so that's why when Lindsay talked about saying yes to things, I think it's important if you're looking for a job or you're wanting to hire team members that you do what I like to call informational interviews. You're always making connections with people because that's when they're going to flip on a switch in your head that you might be a good fit for a friend's company. We talked to a client the other day who had a neighbor who met someone on a construction site who happened to be working in the wood shop, who was a registered architect in another country and now is on their team. So you just never know. And so that's a big thing, I would say, is say yes and take those informational interviews.
I think we've learned that too at Theo Prono for sure. And, not every hiring method is going to work for the same company.
Right.
And so because y'all are the size that you are, you have 8 team members, you can have this type of, I guess, more personal approach. I think larger companies can still do that if they really put the time and effort into it. But I think that's a really great method. And my next question is really about, has the remote work environment hurt you in that recruiting process at all? Like, has that turned people away? Is that something that people are kind of jumping at? And has it hurt or helped you in the retention process as well?
So, as Kate said, whenever you, and we have done this, posted a job opportunity and said it's remote, you get people from all over the place because there is this kind of idea that, oh, I can hang out at home in my pajamas all day and do whatever I want and sometimes do work. And we've had 2 team members that ended up, we realized were not a good fit. And they admitted to us later on that, we realized we need to be in an office from 9 to 5 because we just we need those people making sure we're doing the right thing. We need that interaction.
The camaraderie.
Yeah. And
in-person camaraderie.
And so what we learned as a remote company is we probably shouldn't look for people who have never had that remote experience before. If they have always had those 9 to 5 in-office jobs, then it's kind of a big culture shock to come to work from home.
It really is.
And, it's just not for everyone. It works for us. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I was thinking about your previous question as well, is about how social media can really present this wonderful culture. I was thinking about in terms of larger companies, if they don't have time to do the things we're talking about, your social media, your blog presence, those things can take the place of what we're doing in person. So I did want to mention that before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll talk more about that too. Don't worry. You can't get away without talking about that here.
But I think to this specific question, I think Lindsay hit the nail on the head that we just have to be so careful in making sure people understand that you have to be extremely self-motivated. You cannot be anyway someone who needs to be micromanaged. And everybody is different, and it's okay if it's not the right fit for you. If you need and desire the accountability of being physically among people, that's great. It's just, it's just a character trait that we need to have for our environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to touch on developing talent too and what that looks like at TealHaus, because obviously a big piece of retaining talent and keeping good talent is that development. And so what do you do when it comes to development and retention of your talent?
So, since we're not a big company, and I have worked in those companies that say, if you have been here for 3 years, then you will automatically become assistant director of blah, 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 and then you get that promotion. We can't promise that. What we do is, keep our fingers on the pulse of different trends and things, and speak with our team members and ask them, when Kate has these one-on-one meetings, what else do we need to do to support you? How else do you feel like there's something else you need to learn? We look at, Kate and I went to a conference in New York in the spring, looking for different
Morning
ways.
Brews Marketing Summit. Shout out to the Morning Brews.
Amazing company, as you know.
And so we're always looking for ways to learn. In addition, the agency we partner with in Atlanta, they're called Tantrum Agency. They have clients at a whole different level than us. They're much a larger agency. And so a lot of times things I learned from working with them, I bring to TealHaus. If the creative director there saw something she thought was interesting, or all this AI stuff with design lately, I brought that to our company and said, hey, Stacy showed us this. This might be helpful for us. And so I'm always looking for ways to pull in what I'm seeing and learning to help grow our team.
Great.
Yeah, and I would just touch on that to say that's something we're hoping as we're growing into our toddlerhood and adolescence to continue to create those more formal opportunities. And I'm always reading business books. I love them. And so thinking about, we're actually going to have a big team meeting on Tuesday where I'm going to teach a new operational system we're going to try to play with to see if it can help us be more organized. And if a team member came to us with, hey, there's this conference, there's this opportunity I've read about or I've seen, I'd love to go. I mean, we want to figure out a way with the budget to make it work to grow their skills.
Yeah, I think having your eye on that for the future as you grow is really important. And you're doing more than most larger companies are doing, which hopefully if they listen to this podcast, they feel inclined to engage their talent a little bit more. But jumping to our next question, which is all about social media. So I told you I'd bring it back. We're finding that young professionals are going straight to a company's social media channels before they're actually going to their website. Does not mean they're not going to websites, but 70% of them are going straight to social media instead. So as a marketing agency, what do you make of this? And what are your recommendations for businesses looking to maximize their marketing efforts?
The advice I always give companies as far as social media is to be genuine, because you can tell very quickly when it's not, when it feels canned, when it feels like it came straight out of Canva. No offense, Canva. But to me, what attracts new talent is when they can go to the social media account and really get a feel for who the company is and how to interact with them. And if I worked there, what would it feel like versus, here is a blanket statement that doesn't feel like I can connect with that. And so that's what we try to do with our own social media as well. And I always err on the side of, let's just show our personality and be out there. And then sweet Kate, this is why we balance each other out. She's like, let's be a little more professional, And so I think there is that like a give and take, because you don't want to appear sloppy, but you need to be a little vulnerable and just and show your personality.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and I think one nuance for us too is we're not always trying to sell in our posts for TealHaus, and that's important for us and for our clients too. I mean, I'm a believer in what the story branding techniques talk about, and we're trying to be a guide to our clients to help them achieve their goals. And if we're always selling, that doesn't feel authentic. And so that's a big thing that we try to convey, and the language that we encourage our clients to share so that it feels warm and authentic, as Lindsay said, but not like there's always a CTA per se.
Absolutely. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago books and professional books, that you're kind of a book nerd, if you will, professional book nerd, and I am too. But I read Z Economy recently, and it's a really great book, not necessarily focused on the professional development, but just shares a lot of great data on Gen Z. And they not only want to, there's specific numbers that we could probably tie back to this, but they not only want to buy from brands that they trust, but they also want to work for brands that they trust. So to both of your points, that's so important. And I should also mention that Gen Z is the most diverse generation in U.S. history. They're looking for that inclusivity, and there's a direct tie.
Authentic.
Yeah, and there's a direct tie to authenticity and inclusivity. And so if you're not doing that, they're going to see right through it, to your point. So thank you guys for mentioning that. Anything else? I know that you all obviously help with the full marketing scope. And so does it hurt to see that like people are going straight to social media and not websites, or like what do you make of that?
No, I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt. I wouldn't say ignore your website either, though.
Yes. I was hoping you'd say that.
I spoke with a potential client the other day who was saying, we're struggling to hire. We're looking for new hires. And I went straight to their website and I said, what are you hiring for? Because I don't see the positions on your website. And they said, oh.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
And so, sure, people go straight to social media, great. But then you also need to have your foundation set. So if the social media is amazing, but you go to the website and it doesn't make any sense, then there's a disconnect there.
Right.
And so that's what we work on with our clients is really before you start doing paid advertising or, promoted posts or any of that, like let's make sure your foundation is set. Let's make sure we understand what your value propositions are, how you talk about yourself. And then let's feed that information through all of the different media, from your website to your newsletters to your emails to social media.
Yeah, and I think a digital reputation is so comprehensive. When you type into a search engine a company's name, their social is going to come up, their website's going to come up, their reviews are going to come up, So that's why we look comprehensively at all those things so that when someone is seeking you out in all those ways, you're coming up looking lovely all the way around.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, if things aren't matching, then your audience isn't going to trust what you're putting out. And that's what we're trying to do is instill that trust.
Yeah. And one thing I always like to share with, anybody that's listening or watching, and I know you all know this, is what you put out there externally does need to match internally.
Yes.
So we want you to be authentic, but authentic needs to mean that. It needs to, if you're showing what life in the office looks like on social media, which is what we encourage all of our clients to do in our audience, it needs to match what's actually happening. Like that can't just happen on camera and then be done. So that's a really important thing. I know that you share that as well with your clients. As we wrap things up, I want to ask one more question and then I'll kind of throw it back to you and see if there's anything else we didn't touch on today. But as a growing number of young professionals enter the workforce and the Gen X baby boomer generation begins to retire, a lot of them already have, where do you see the biggest challenge from your respective industry? Or maybe I can expand that to the industries of all your clients, because you really touch a lot of different clients and industries.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for us, with marketing, you have to stay on top of the trends and things so much that, to me, the more young people coming in the workforce, the better, because they're the ones who are staying on top of that, and that's...
They're the digital natives.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't really find that as a challenge in the marketing world. What I do hear from clients, I don't know that this is true, Camber, you can tell me, is as the baby boomers retire, they're the hard workers. They're the ones that you can always rely upon. And, what do we do with these young kids who feel so entitled? And I realize that is completely not the case, but that is the perception that's out there. And so we have to speak with our clients about actually that's not the case, and here is what they can bring to the table. And just because the baby boomers have always done it the way it's always been done doesn't mean that's the way it should always happen. Because there is this natural growth that needs to happen, and they need to stay open to change.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about, I do at least, subverting the 5-day work week. And I learned this during COVID passionately when I was multitasking with a 5-month-old. But you can do your work and not have to be within 9 to 5 days a week. And we always tell our team, like, if you got your work done and you only worked 4 hours today and you can go enjoy nature, that's awesome. And you probably are going to enrich your brain and have, so much data says that when you're out in nature, your brain is solving problems in the background. Your subconscious is dealing with things that when you come back to them, you're actually more efficient. So anyway, it's nice to see that our younger generations embrace that concept, and I'll be really intrigued to see how the working world changes in the coming decades.
Yeah.
But from our clients' perspective, a lot of things we're seeing as the baby boomers are retiring is just thinking about succession planning. And we've had several clients we've worked with on that idea, because you've got to make everybody comfortable with this new leader who's younger, who doesn't have the rapport. And that's a big thing. And we've actually helped multiple clients do that and think about it, prepare for it. And it's something Lindsay and I enjoy: organizational development and analysis and operational consulting a little bit, just from our past roles. And so we've ended up taking on a little bit of that as part of, Seth Godin says everything is marketing. So we end up doing a little bit of counseling too.
Well, I mean, and we have to, because, and I'm Camber, I know you know this, but we can do all the marketing in the world that makes your company look great externally, but if internally you can't support that, then you're not going to get the results you need. And so that's where this kind of operational conversation comes into play, because we can bring you all the prospective customers in the world, but if your team can't handle it when they come on, then there's a disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
2 quick comments, because you guys brought up a lot of really great things. One, I know that you mentioned succession planning. That's so crucial. We had a whole episode on succession planning. I know you have a client that you work with who works with companies, right, in succession planning. So shout out to Rachel. And then 2, just Lindsay, you mentioned this kind of open-mindedness that this next generation hopefully is coming up with. And that's really why the YoProKnow exists, is to help all generations understand that there are strengths in each of our generations. And we try not to look at generations as, putting people in boxes as much as it is looking at behaviors that these generations have that you can look at as strengths, or you can look at them as weaknesses. So we've seen baby boomers looking at young professionals in an unfavorable light. We've seen young professionals looking at experienced professionals in an unfavorable light. We've got to figure out how to get that to meet in the middle. But to your point, thank you for sharing that you're excited and positive about this change, because it is positive, but you have to engage young talent in a way that makes sense for the future. And so embracing change is so important. So sorry, I feel like I'm answering the question now, but I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I didn't explicitly ask, so thank you for mentioning that. Is there anything else that we have not covered today that y'all want to share before we wrap things up?
The only thing I would add, people ask a lot, how have you grown so quickly, so fast? And my answer to that is always, I'm honest.
You really are.
Which sounds like, it sounds so vague, but it's the truth. I mean, I've never said I know it all. I've told clients when they ask if we can do something, well, we can try it and I'll see. I can't promise it's going to happen, but we can figure this out. And with our team members, I tell them all the time, like, we don't have all the answers yet. Like, I can tell you what I want this company to be in 10 years, but do I know for a fact it's going to be that way? No, because we can't predict the future and times change and we have to pivot. And I think, at least I know our clients have appreciated that honesty, because they know we're working as hard as we can and we are partners with them in this versus a vendor. And truly our team members become a part of our client's team for that reason. So.
And the thing I would add is just how important it is not to make fear-based decisions.
Oh, good one.
I mean, that's something that I've had to really learn, because I'm a naturally anxious person. I'm always looking at the weather and trying to plan for the worst possible scenario. But the fact is, we cannot control anything that is happening. And Lindsay has been such a great influence on me, because she is intrepid in how she takes on the world. And I think as a young company, it's been so important for us to not make fear-based decisions, because they're usually not going to be good decisions. And so I think that's important for entrepreneurs. I think it's important for young professionals to hear, and that mistakes are actually a good thing sometimes, because that's how we learn and grow. And if we didn't try things and make mistakes, we would be stagnant. So
Absolutely.
that's my last little bit there.
Well, thank you both again. You certainly are really a great balance of each other. So I think you guys mentioned that a couple times, but thank you again for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. I've known you all for a while now, but just seeing you here really means a lot to me, and I look up to both of you. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh,
well, we look up to you and are so proud of the work you've done and just the way you've built this company. So it's a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you. And we'll make sure that whoever is listening or watching gets their contact information. So make sure to reach out to TealHaus Strategies. So thank you again for joining us on The Great Retention with Camber Parker this week. Before you go, remember this: young professionals make up nearly half of the workforce today and are expected to jump at a rapid pace in this decade. What will you do to help them become the next great leaders we need for the future? Join us next time for more information on how to recruit and retain young professionals. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps people that are interested in this topic be able to find it. And most importantly, don't forget to share with your coworkers. Until next time, thanks everyone.